Thank you, sir. Mr. Hodgson, I'd like to pick up our next topic and theme, please, of some aspects of your work with Lancashire County Council, the local authority. We've seen in your statement that you had an immediate suspicion that AR might be autistic.
Yeah.
And in seeking to deal with that, if we look at page 5 of your statement, you can have the two middle paragraphs on the screen, please, 15 and 16. In the first meeting, you accept that there may have been an element of communication, a miscommunication as between the school and AR as to who was going to take that forward. I think the school, with the understanding that Alphonse R was going to take AR for a GP's appointment in that respect, but it later becoming clear that Alphonse R hadn't done that, and he thought that ACONS would be making the referral. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And we've explored with others how, in fact, the autism assessment was going through in 2019 and 2020 and the pace of it. So I don't wish to ask anything more about that. But against the background of an assessment for autism being a priority, you also say, right at the bottom of the page, paragraph 17, please, it was a priority to have him referred for an ASD assessment. Clear traits of autism, although you're an educator, not a clinician, academically capable, and so on. And if we go over the page, this leads into the point that you raise in your statement that AR had never been assessed for an EHCP, so there was no background in terms of educational assessment and support at the point of his referral to your school. Is that right?
Yep.
And arising out of that, the EHCP was not by any means the only aspect that you were referring to here, but you go on to say, I felt it was important to put all of these things in place.
Yeah.
Now, we know, because it's minuted in the 6th of January 2020 strategy meeting, so LCC 001802 at page 24, but we don't need to bring it up, that taking forward the EHCP was decided upon as an action point at that meeting.
Yeah.
By that stage, AR had been at the Acorns for some 2.5 months, although there had obviously been the major interruption of the attack at the range school on the 11th of December. There's a lot of activity going on, but do you think that work towards an EHCP might have started slightly sooner than it did?
The chronology that we kept throughout November and December would be the first steps to the EHCP. So normally, do you mean for us to start it or something
Yes.
else? Yeah, so normally you'd do 2 terms of watching somebody trying different approaches, graduated response before you have got enough evidence to put an EHCP together. So we hadn't had him for 2 terms, I think we'd had him for 2 months or 6 weeks or something like that. So the start of that chronology, which started as he started with us, was to build the evidence for the EHCP. We just didn't expect it to take the direction it took in terms of school shootings and all of that kind of thing.
So you would say that even though matters were of obvious concern, nevertheless this was evidence building that was a necessary precursor?
Yeah, that's what we always do, is to start to build that.
We don't perhaps need to go into the fine detail, but you also raise in the statement some issue about whether father was going to take that forward and seek an EHCP or school was going to do so. Did that bring in an element of delay and uncertainty about that?
Yeah, I offered at that meeting to make the request for statutory assessment, even though we hadn't had him that long. I thought we had enough at that point because of the extraordinary events that were going on to start to make a request for statutory assessment. And it was decided by the other professionals at that meeting that they would look for a parental request instead. I think sometimes because they're a bit faster to go through. I'm not sure why that decision was made, but the offer that I made was not accepted at that meeting. The problem with parental requests is they can they can minimise some of the issues around a child, because the parents will often present a child in a more favourable light than a professional will.
Thank you. So some of the aspects perhaps around behaviours and risks,
Yeah.
which in your evidence, Alphonse R was not accepting
Yeah,
of
exactly.
them, may not have featured in an EHCP that was requested by parents,
Yeah.
and therefore would have been lacking in quality in assessing the real needs.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And the other delay was caused because it was a parental request. It went through as a mainstream.
Well, I'm going to come on to
Oh,
that
yeah,
in
sorry,
just a moment.
sorry.
No, not at all. I'm just looking at the chronology. So
Yeah,
we'll come to that in just a moment, if I may, in the course of the chronology. After the hockey stick incident, it's right to note, isn't it, that the bail conditions meant that AR was not permitted to attend the physical premises of the Acorn School.
Yeah.
Trying to summarise quite a lot of information that's in your statement that gives the full detail of why you were so concerned, I think against the sense that you'd had that something was building up, the visceral dread,
Yeah.
and then the attack itself, would this be right? You had very significant concerns about the safety of other pupils at
Yeah.
the school and indeed the staff at the school,
Yeah.
yes?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've understood from your statement that a key feature of that in the school's thinking and your individual thinking at this time was that it was simply not appropriate for there to be staff contact with AR in the teaching environment, any teaching environment, let alone he having contact with other pupils until the risk had been properly assessed.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you say in your statement that you felt that there was some resistance to Acorn's position on that. Where was the resistance coming from? Which agencies?
All of them, I think. I felt like everybody just kind of took a step back and passed the risk to us. And just their solution to the issue was to say, you've got to take him back into school. And my issue was that I didn't want him to bring him back into school until I understood the risk, and then him injure one of our children or one of our staff.
And in the immediate weeks and months following the incident, the suggestion that you should take him back in school was unrealistic in any event because
Yeah.
it would have been a breach of the bail conditions.
Well, what the bail conditions actually said for him not to attend at Acorn School until a multi-agency risk assessment had taken place.
Yeah.
That's what it actually said.
And who were you expecting to carry out that risk assessment?
All of us as multi-agency, really. I was quite happy to play a part in that, but it was kind of, you know, the famous quote is, "You've been left holding the baby now, kind of get on with it."
Yeah.
So I've been trying to get help. I've been trying to get other agencies involved in the weeks leading up to the attack, and then all of a sudden the attack happens, and lots and lots of agencies are then involved. And my immediate thought was, at least we're going to get something done now. At least people are going to look at the risks around him, and we're going to have a multi-agency plan around him. But that didn't happen. It was kind of the police peeled away, Prevent peeled away, CAMS peeled away, forensic CAMS, who I thought were going to come in and assess the risk, didn't do it. Social services said that they didn't think there was a risk, and we were literally left holding the baby.
Yeah. Holding the baby, but also, would this be right? Thinking there plainly is a risk and there needs to be a professional assessment of it.
Yeah, and we're teachers. We're not police, we're not clinicians, we're not social services, we're teachers. That's, you know, with some SEN qualifications about how to engage children with SEN, but not around managing a risk that he presented.
I think one subset of this was that there was a request for the local authority to do a specific risk assessment of the ability of one teacher or tutor to go into the family home
Yeah.
and provide education at home. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And I think there was a request and an offer that would be done.
Yeah.
Was it in fact done?
The risk assessment?
That
No.
subset risk assessment?
No.
In the meantime, I hope I summarise it accurately, that in the earliest months of 2020, I think what was happening was that work was being sent home
Yeah.
for AR to do. So pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
when everything changed for everybody, but even before that, for AR, work was being sent home, but I think not being returned.
Yeah, we were sending a pack out every Friday with a stamped addressed envelope so they could do it and send it back to us, but nothing ever came back.
And there were attempts, I think, then to try to make it more interactive, the things that he could complete in his own time online, but
Yeah.
again, not, I think, with any real success.
We took advice from the attendance people at the local authority, and they said that because of this issue of legality,
Just stick with the moment for
Sorry,
the question.
sorry.
Because just in terms of the attempts that were made, I think work sent back explaining it to come back in and be marked,
Yeah, and it
but there
didn't.
was then an effort, I think, to do more stuff online.
I
in
did
an interactive
a
way.
home visit with Jane Eccleston, who was the head teacher at the time, to talk about what we could put in place that might engage him. We didn't meet with him; he wouldn't come down. But we met with Dad, and he was talking about the different ways he wanted to learn. And we put like an online package together for him to do that he could do in his own time because he was more likely to engage with that.
All right. And then if we now come to the point I
Yeah.
think you wanted to make, if we look at page 23, thank you very much. Page 23, paragraph 80. So bottom two paragraphs. Is this what you had in mind? A
Yeah.
further multi-agency strategy meeting took place on the 6th of January. I reported that work had been sent home for AR. However, Peter Oates, just remind us who she was.
She was the lead officer for alternative provision at the time, amongst other things.
Thank you, at the local authority.
Yeah, the local authority, yeah.
Had advised that this was illegal. And the sense from your statement and from the documents in relation to this, is this right, that the concern that was being raised here was that AR was not, technically speaking, excluded from the Acorn School, and by requiring him to be at home and do work at home and not come into the school, that was a de facto exclusion without having gone through the correct procedural steps
Yeah.
for an exclusion. Is that a
Yeah,
fair
that's
summary of
right,
what the
yeah.
concern was?
Yeah.
Was there any alternative?
The only other alternative would have been to exclude him, to permanently exclude him, and that would have meant passing the risk on to others or losing him to the system completely.
Yeah.
So we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We either exclude him or we bring this child in who we think is dangerous to be in school, or we do something like we did as an interim measure.
I don't want to do a disservice to Peter Oates, because I think you say that in around later issues she was very helpful and
She
supportive.
did, yeah. She came,
Yeah.
yeah. She was very supportive, yeah.
But in relation to this issue, was that slightly ratcheting up the pressure on the Acorns?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was anything concrete put forward by the local authority in terms of alternative provision, additional resource that,
We
that
spoke
could be tried?
to a lady called Helen Smith, who was in charge of attendance at that point, and she felt that we could put it onto a legal footing by making the work available to him online rather than sending work packs out.
Thank you.
So that's what we did. I was uncomfortable about putting a tutor in the house, even without a suitable risk assessment, because I just didn't. I just couldn't put another human being into that position.
I think Mr. Turner's evidence on this was that he accepted that it was really for the local authority to consider alternatives. And he also thought, I think, that the statutory guidance might allow for a short period, the sort of arrangement that was done, but probably not for a long-term solution.
No.
I don't think you had envisaged this as a long-term solution.
Absolutely
it was really
not,
until
no.
the proper risk assessment had been done. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Was the proper risk assessment ever done?
No, only by us when we brought him back into school in the summer after lockdown.
And so, would this be right that when the pandemic struck, followed weeks later by the timetable of school closures, there had been no resolution of that knotty problem? At that stage, AR was still receiving work at home, albeit now online, and you still didn't have a risk assessment.
The last strategy meeting before the pandemic was the 4th of March, and there was still a big push from the other agencies for us to just take him back into school without that risk assessment.
I'll come back to that in the context of FCAMS. COVID then, in a sense, intervenes because the schools are closed. And when the first lockdown, I think, ends, we don't need to go into the full details, but I think that the partial lifting of that meant that children who were allowed to come into school initially were those who were particularly vulnerable.
That's right, yeah.
You explain in your statement that AR was identified as one who was particularly vulnerable because of, against the background of other factors, he was at risk of being extremely socially isolated.
Yeah.
You were then in a position, is this right, where there were very few pupils coming into school?
Yeah.
And so in that altered risk situation, I think you made the decision that he could physically come into school and that could be offered because in the unusual circumstances that most of your pupils were not present, the risk could be tolerated and managed. Is that a fair summary?
That's fair, yeah.
Dealing with attendance just a little bit more broadly, if we could look at page 32 of your statement, please. You deal, starting at the bottom of the page, with attendance, paragraph 113, and you detail his attendance figures.
Yeah.
And for each of these, you give a breakdown. So attended 29.9% of the time up to July 2020, and then that the 29% attendance was reflecting part-time timetable and home learning during the COVID lockdown, and then 69% of unauthorised attendance.
No, it's he actually attended physically for 29%, so 29.9% of the time. And then his part-time timetable and home learning during lockdown is the 69%.
Right.
And his unauthorised attendance is 1.1%.
The 1.1%, forgive me.
So as the years go through, you can see that it's that unauthorised attendance.
You're quite right.
Figure. Yeah.
No, you're quite right. I wanted to focus on the position thereafter, though. So paragraph 114. So attended 36.4% of the time.
Yeah.
And then with authorised attendance, as it's phrased, as 62.6, and unauthorised attendance of 1.
No, that's the wrong way round. It should be unauthorised attendance of 62. No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. It is the right way round.
I got it wrong the first time.
No, it's yeah, sorry. He attended 36.4. He had authorised attendance of 62.6, again, because we had lockdowns, and he was on a part-time table, and his unauthorised attendance when we were expecting to see him and he didn't turn up was 1%.
And then paragraph 115, September 21 to April 22, attended 12.2%, authorised attendance 50%, that would involve part-time.
Yeah, that's because he was on a part-time.
And unauthorised attendance of 37%. So there we see the unauthorised attendance has gone up quite a lot.
Suddenly shooting up,
Now, I want to just focus on the authorised attendance part-time. Mm-hmm. If one had been strict about it, was it within the rules and the guidance, strictly speaking, to count the limited attendance on part-time, which was less than the standard Acorns full day, as authorised attendance?
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, in terms of action that should be taken by the local authority and by the school in relation to failing to attend and the measures that would then be in place, should that, strictly speaking, have been permitted absence in the way that it was? Wasn't it actually building up a pattern of inappropriate absence that was being allowed by way of mitigation, when, strictly speaking, according to the rules and the guidance, it perhaps should have been viewed as absence?
We are allowed to put, as a PRU, we're allowed to put bespoke timetables in for pupils that need them.
Could we look at the way that Kate Dixon from the Department for Education puts it? It's DFE 30256, page 24, paragraph 79. We just have paragraph 79 highlighted.
Yeah.
So she summarised this position. AR's attendance was good, but fell rapidly at Acorn School, worsened further after the lockdowns. Of some concern is the fact that a large proportion of his absence from Acorn School was classified as other authorised absence. Mm-hmm. At the time, schools did not have a separate attendance and absence code for part-time timetables, which may have been one of the reasons for such a large number of other authorised absences. However, such a high rate of absence should have been seen as a risk factor and reported to the local authority via statutory attendance return in line with the legal duty under the 2006 regulations as amended. It's unclear whether the local authority took action to investigate the high levels of non-attendance and put in place any necessary support at the time. What do you say about that?
We did what we had to do to get him into school and engage with us. So we tried a couple of times to build his timetable up, and we couldn't because he struggled to be in class with the other pupils. We had a risk around him perceiving that he was being bullied by the other pupils and what might happen from that. Dad was pushing really hard for a full-time timetable, but AR did not consent to that. He could not manage with more than we were offering him, and that was a massive risk to try and push him beyond what he was able to do or consented to do. We knew what the risks were around him. We were not the right place for him, and we said that right from the beginning.
I'm going to come back to that aspect, but your answer, I think, is we were doing what we had to do to try to prevent the position becoming more volatile. Right.
Yeah.
You'll see now, though, from paragraph 79 why I'm seeking to give you an opportunity to comment on this, because this would appear to be a suggestion that this should have been the subject of a formal report to the local authority about the level of AR's absence. Given the other communications and liaison that you were having with the local authority, were the local authority in fact already aware of the type of attendance pattern, do you think?
That we were having liaison with early help service from the local authority and with the SEND around the EHCP, but we weren't having a liaison with anybody else around him.
Do you think, on reflection, that the best practice in this situation may have been to continue as you felt you had to do, but to make the formal report to the local authority in relation to statutory attendance, but with a caveat saying that there's no other real alternative here?
Yeah. I mean, what they're saying is that is a risk factor, but it was a risk factor for him and that's what we were dealing with.
You predicted the next sub-area that I wanted to go into, which was you weren't the right solution. You'd made that clear from the start. Mm-hmm. And we've heard evidence about Acorns wouldn't really be intended as a long-term solution for any pupil, although it sometimes ends up lasting longer than might be ideal. But in terms of alternatives, so additional funded support from the local authority coming into Acorns to help with AR, or alternative education provider, another school, whether a special school or adjustments made, may not have been realistic for a mainstream school. Was any of that being taken forward so far as you could see?
No, because the EHCP said he was going to go, that he needed a mainstream setting. That delayed all of that moving forward. So that delayed things probably by about a year in terms of him moving on from us. I did apply at one point for a specialist teaching service to come in and work with him, but I didn't get anywhere. That was when I put Mrs. Allred in place instead.
Yeah. So you did seek additional resource to come into Acorns to help with that.
Yeah.
And when you say you didn't get anywhere, were you given a reason for that at all?
There's a chain of emails where I'm corresponding and saying we really need help with this child, we want to get him back in, he's vulnerable, we need him in school, and then people just stopped answering me in the end.
And the people there who stopped answering, which agency?
Local authority.
And I think in his evidence, Mr. Turner candidly accepted that that was the case. And you've touched upon, again, the next area that I wanted to deal with, but the EHCP containing a mainstream school was, I think, the parents' preference.
It was, yeah.
And would this be right, that with all your experience, as you've mentioned previously, there was really no realistic prospect of getting a mainstream school to take onto their role a pupil who'd been excluded originally for bringing knives to school on 10 occasions, when there'd then been a subsequent event of an actual attack.
Yeah, and also had lots and lots of barriers to his education.
And barriers to education and the difficulties that Acorns had suffered.
Yeah.
Were the parents, Alfonso in particular, receptive to your attempts to reason with them?
Not at all. It was quite a difficult meeting in the May of 2020 where I made the case several times to him in that meeting that he could not go to mainstream, and he just kept coming back to the mainstream thing over and over again. And when the educational psychologist spoke to me to get input into that original EHCP, I made it very clear to her that he couldn't go back to mainstream.
There is, I think, provision in appropriate circumstances for the local authority to override a family's request in an EHCP if the view is assessed, if the preference is assessed as being unsuitable.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what should have happened?
Yeah, I do.
And should have happened at an early stage?
In 2020, yeah. It's difficult for us as a school because we didn't make the request for statutory assessment, so we were kind of like feeding into that EHCP process but not running it or not leading it, whereas with other pupils we would be leading that process and it would be easier to challenge.
Thank you. And then finally, in relation to local authority and interagency working with them, 234 please, page 64. One of the points you made, second line here, early help were very quick to close the case altogether.
Yeah.
And also you say that the local authority, social services were very quick to de-escalate to level 3 and to level 2, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you feel that that was premature when it was done?
Yeah. There were lots of... We were the only people that saw him on that journey from October 2019 through to... April 22, we were the only consistent professionals all the way through, and others were kind of dipping in and dipping out, and then but wouldn't have the full picture, or would have to start from the beginning, and that gave Alphonse opportunity to tell a different story to different professionals, and all of those factors.
And in the context of the interagency working, same paragraph further down, you mention that there were frequent changes of social workers.
Yeah.
and family support workers,
Yeah.
and one understands the challenge of staff turnover, but as an objective factor, you say that that meant that there had to be an element of starting again from the beginning, you felt each time.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We don't need to turn up the documents in relation to this, but you deal in your statement with the position in the summer of 2020, coming to the end of that COVID-affected academic year. And I think you raised concerns that you didn't want the CFW to withdraw their support coming into the summer at about July time. Can you just explain why you were particularly concerned about that?
Well, we knew how Alphonse felt about us, and that wasn't very positive. We were trying to get AR back into school, and there were being barriers put up to that. We'd had very little contact with the family over lockdown, so despite trying, I think we'd had one message that said Happy Easter or something, whereas Child and Family Wellbeing had managed to maintain that contact, and we were worried that if we didn't get AR back into school in the summer or the September, that we'd lose him altogether.
Do you remember how that played out at that particular time, whether they did remain involved at that stage?
What happened was we managed to get AR into school in the July, and early help did remain involved, I think.
Thank you. I want to ask you next about interagency working with CAMS and FCAMS. You had an early difficulty, I think, in terms of the CAMS referral, because you were involved in a CAMS referral to Lancashire CAMS, but were told that it needed to be to Sefton CAMS because although AR lived in Lancashire, he had a Sefton GP.
Yeah.
And you were concerned, I think, because you knew that a referral to Sefton CAMS had already been made and rejected by the Range School. I think in due course, and obviously there were the events of December as well, but in due course, obviously, Sefton CAMS did become involved, yes?
Yeah, we got, I think it was Community Paediatrics agreed to take the referral in the November of 2019. Community Paediatrics from Alderhay, Sefton CAMS, and then it all got overtaken by the attack in December. And they took an urgent referral then instead, not from us, from the police.
Thank you. I'm not going to get for the moment into the distinction between Community Paediatrics and Alderhay CAMS, but we understand that your fear that it would be completely rejected by Sefton CAMS, I think in the event, partly possibly because of intervening events, but they did become involved.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
You then attend the two meetings that are involved with FCAMS. And the first of those was on the 21st of January 2020.
Yeah.
And if we look at paragraph 85 of your statement on page 25, forgive me, let's just pick it up on for context on page 24, paragraph 84. So you've helpfully set out the full minutes here, which we have in our documents. So that's what I'm looking at. If we go to page 25, and we've seen this a number of times, but in the middle of the page, in the quote, it's probably fine as it is on screen, Sarah. John H., that's John Hicklin, then turned to Joe H., that's you, and said, I've been thinking about what you said before. I don't have a crystal ball. None of us have. We can't say whether he's likely to offend again. There are kids who have carried out serious offences. They still have a right to an education. Joanna Hudson replied that might be so, but she wasn't prepared to explain to a parent why a child at our school has been seriously injured. And we know that there was the later comment in the minutes, which was a return to the same theme, at least as minuted. I don't have a crystal ball, none of us have, and offering a £5 bet to anyone who could say what was going to happen next. those matters were put to Mr. Hicklin and to Ms. Brown, the head of operations of FCAMS. One of the points that Mr. Hicklin made in relation to this was that while he didn't dispute that he may have said those things, he said that he didn't think it fairly gave the context. What's your recollection of what was being discussed at that time? What was the context in which that comment was made?
I think myself and the lady who'd originally, I think she was called Stephanie Halloran, who'd originally made
Yes.
the referral to forensic CAMS, were explaining how high risk he was, the level of premeditation, the fact that he'd attacked a boy who was his friend because he thought, well, I'm here, so I might as well. The fact that there was no remorse, and all the really, really high risk factors that we thought that meant there was a high risk of him coming back into school and carrying out something similar, because I still had the pupil at that point who had been involved in the scuffle with him. I still had Miss Heaton teaching. You know, there were a lot of people who were potentially at risk from him coming back into school. And I was expecting that meeting to be an assessment of risk by everybody about forensic led by forensic CAMS. And it wasn't. It was kind of, well, you're left on the baby, just get on with it. Yes, I accept, we accept you're not the right place to be. We accept you should be in a specialist setting. We're not going to do any risk assessment, and over to you.
Was there an element of part of the context being what you may have perceived as being the pressure, but the concern being raised that AR was out of education to a significant extent at that stage, and that itself could be an aggravating risk factor?
Absolutely, that was mentioned.
Yeah.
But my concern was the children and the staff I had in front of me.
And even if that was the context, would it follow that from what was minuted, that what you were saying is it may be so that there are kids who've carried out serious offences and they still have a right to an education? You weren't denying that.
No.
But what you were saying was it's necessary to have a risk assessment because we must ensure that children in the Acorn School, or for that matter staff, are not seriously injured.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like all the risk was being set past to us, and I actually felt quite ganged up on in that meeting. And I did come back and speak to the head teacher, Jane Eccleston, about it, and she then attended the meeting on the 4th of March with me to support me.
And the head of operations, I don't know if you've saw her evidence or read her transcript, but Ms. Brown candidly accepted in relation to that she didn't think that was consistent with the values that FCAMS should have. Yeah. And when asked why, she said because it was indicative of a sort of flippant comment. I don't suppose you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that.
But relevant to the work of the inquiry, it's right to say that to the extent that it was fair to characterise Mr. Hicklin's comment as flippant, it was a flippant comment in response to you indicating to FCAMS that what was needed was a proper professional risk assessment.
Yeah. Because again, we're teachers, we cannot carry out a CAMS or a mental health risk assessment around a child.
And in paragraph 89 of your statement, over the page, please, Sarah. Second sentence, I felt that the concerns I had raised were not being taken seriously and that the response from other agencies was inadequate. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm going to seek to deal with the next matter without going to the records, if I may, but if you want to see them, let me know. Okay. But for the second meeting that took place on the 4th of March, if you take it from me from the moment that the minutes of the meetings themselves, LCC 001346, for your note, don't appear to have any reference to the concept of a later re-referral to FCAMS.
No, there weren't any minutes of that meeting, that, to my knowledge. Those are my notes. In
I'm
the
so sorry.
CPOMs.
You're right to correct me. I think you're
Yeah.
right that those are I think they go into CPOMs. I think.
Yeah.
So your note of that meeting, but your minutes, if you like, but they don't in fact contain. I'm not going to go to them because it's proving a negative. They don't contain any reference to if this happens, we should re-refer to FCAMs. Were you aware of anything being said about you can come back and re-refer to FCAMs?
No, I wasn't.
In particular, if a diagnosis of autism is confirmed?
It was, my take from that meeting was that CAMS had said there was no mental health concerns, and FCAMS said that they couldn't do anything without an autism diagnosis. So that left us kind of adrift, because ASC diagnoses take a long time to come through.
So the inquiry has seen a letter that was written by Mr. Hicklin after that meeting, which was addressed to Ms. Halloran, who you mentioned earlier on, who had referred into FCAMS, which pointed to some risk factors that would be relevant and complicated in the case of a child who had autism, but also appearing to indicate at the end, as well as the sentiment of you can re-refer to FCAMS later, that it would be difficult for FCAMS to say more about risk until a diagnosis of autism had been made. Was your school copied into that letter?
No.
Did you understand at all, as the deputy head of the school, that there had been an offer from FCAMS that there could be a re-referral once autism was diagnosed?
Not at all.
If you had had a sense of that, would you have looked to a re-referral to FCAMS, both when autism was diagnosed and when there were further problems with AR?
Can I ask a question? Why would you need an autism diagnosis to carry out a risk assessment?
I'm not going to ask Mr. to answer that.
You don't have, but you know,
we
it's
have
not,
heard evidence on that.
Yeah.
You asked that rhetorically,
Yeah,
by which you mean you wouldn't need that to do the risk assessment.
Yeah.
I follow. When you're told about the events of the 17th of March and matters were passed on to Pressfield in relation to that, could we have a look, please, at paragraph 244 at page 68 of your statement? We see there that on the 22nd of March, Ms. Allred emailed Ms. Steed to ask again about the events of the 17th of March. You say that Ms. Steed again did not disclose what had happened. And it's apparent from 244 that this was the second time that there was contact in relation to that.
Yeah.
So I asked you about this in the context of parents, of Alphonse earlier, I think. But here you're dealing with the position in relation to CAMS. What did you understand at the time? Why did you understand that despite the school learning through Op Encompass that a knife had been involved, that information wasn't being volunteered from CAMS to the school? My
instinct and my understanding at the time was that they didn't want anything to derail the move to Pressfield, and they didn't want us to share that information with Pressfield that would then lead to Pressfield then not offering him a place. That was what I understood at the time. Well, that's my supposition at the time.
So it's not direct knowledge, but that's your understanding of what the motivation may have been.
Yeah, that's what we thought was going on at the time.
Could we have on screen, please, PRE 30357? And could we go to page 2, please? So this is the 22nd of March email, I think, that you were referring to in your statement. Is that right?
Yeah.
Could we just look at the bottom email, please, first of all, Sarah? Can you let us know how the meeting with AR went on Friday and clarify what were the issues that caused AR to act in the way he did on Thursday? So that's a reference back to the 17th of March.
Yeah.
These words, please give as much information as possible so we can update our safeguarding and risk assessments.
Yeah.
Where was AR enrolled at this stage?
With us.
So this is you asking CAMS for as much information as possible so that CAMS could provide you with information to help you update your safeguarding and risk assessments. Yes?
We'd had sight of the Encompass, so we're trying to see if they're going to tell us what's happening.
I appreciate that, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It would also be useful if you can liaise with Pressfield School. Are you happy for me to forward your details to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we look at the very, very bottom two lines of the previous page, please, Sarah. Having been asked to give all possible information, do we see at the bottom of the page that the same day, Samantha Steed, 11:45, response, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's Ms. Steed's reply to Ms. Aldred. And then we go to the top of the next page, please. Good morning, Maggie. AR came to session and engaged well. From what he shared, I can let you know that he does not want to return to Acorns to say goodbye. Was that the question that had been asked?
No.
He is looking forward to starting at Pressfield and have agreement from AR to contact them. I'm happy for Pressfield to have my details. Yes?
Yeah.
If and to the extent that CAMS knew information about what had happened on the 17th of March, despite the fact that AR was still enrolled at that stage at your school,
Yeah.
and it had been requested in the context of asking for safeguarding information to keep pupils and staff at the Acorns safe, no information was volunteered.
No, nothing.
And as Mr. Boyle was exploring with Ms. Lewis, and I don't need to turn up the emails, what ended up happening was a rather circuitous route, wasn't it? With Acorns saying to Pressfield, you should be aware of this information.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So we, the present school, are letting you know that this incident has happened.
Yeah.
But neither Father nor AR nor CAMS know that we know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So please try to get Father or AR to volunteer this information, because if you volunteer that you know it from us, it will be difficult for relationships, including your trust.
Yeah, that's true.
And also saying to the new school, you might want to speak to Sam Steed yourselves to get it from there,
Yeah.
perhaps in a sense that they might be more willing to share with the next school than this.
Yeah. Yeah. That was how we had to manage Alphonse, though, was just by that trust and for them not to think that we were talking about them behind the back or that we were sharing information behind the back. And it was really important that AR built a trusting relationship up with Pressfield, and we didn't want to kind of derail that right from day one. That was why it was really important that that level of trust was maintained.
And in terms, though, one understands why you're cautious about and really warning Pressfield about be careful how you handle this information, because right at the beginning of them being the school, it could damage relationships.
Yeah.
But if one takes Alfonso out of the equation for the moment and looks at that in terms of the interagency dealings between two schools and CAMS, you in fact had this information because you got it from the police.
Yeah.
But was this how interagency working should look?
Absolutely not.
At all?
Absolutely not. No. But that's why we made the decision to give that information to Pressfield, because we didn't think they'd get it any other way. So we shared the Encompass with them and we shared the CPOMs with them while he was still on our roll.
You thought withholding that safeguarding information would be wrong?
Yeah, because up until then we thought his risk had really dropped and we were happy for him to go to Pressfield, but after that incident on the bus, the risk had shot right up again, and they needed to know that.
Did you think about, at that stage, getting FCAMs involved, given that there'd been another episode with a knife?
After my experience with FCAMs, I've never tried to get them involved ever again. That's the honest truth. And that I wouldn't be able to make a referral to FCAMs as a school. It's a tertiary referral. It has to come from one medical professional to another.
Thank you. I'm going to move away from CAMs and FCAMs and just ask you briefly about the local police, Lancashire Police.
Okay.
They've come up in several places. You deal in your statement the dealings that you had with PC McNamee, I think early in October, trying to get further information about the October event. There was then liaison, I think, that you had with PC Harrison, also of Lancashire Police, in relation to events in 2019. And I've just been asking you about the Op Encompass referral that you did receive in March. Can you help us with what, in general terms, you found the working relationship with the local constabulary to be, and working with them?
PC Harrison was really good, and he worked really well with us. And in that very first strategy meeting on the 17th of December, where I was being told even then to take him back into school, he sat next to me and completely supported me. But after that, they kind of stepped back. So they didn't kind of get involved with him again after that. I think once he'd gone through for sentencing and he got his referral order, they didn't see any need to get involved.
Was there any contact between you and Lancashire Constabulary over the bus incident, other than receiving the information through the Op Encompass referral?
No, that was the only information we got.
But you did get that information?
But we did get that information, yeah.
Thank you. I want to turn to interagency working with Prevent now. Several aspects to this. In relation to the first referral, the inquiry in the Learning Chair is well familiar with the first referral. We've looked at it quite a lot. We know that one part, but not the only part, was the November looking up school shooting aspects.
Yeah.
You were asked some issues, or Acorns were asked some issues, and you gave the main statement in relation to some aspects in which your former colleague Stephanie Heaton, who you've mentioned, I think it was felt that she was perhaps better placed to ask.
Yeah. And
so just for your note, we've recently received that additional statement from her, LCC 002135. But I don't think I need to take Mrs. Hodgson to that.
That's helpful.
In relation to the internet use at the school and the 15th of November, we've heard that the system in play was relying on software that would block certain sites and only allowed authorised types of sites to be assessed. And I think you now understand that it shows that in relation to that 15th of November, there was access to a mainstream media report, or attempted access to a mainstream media report of a school shooting in America, but a significant number of attempts to access graphic photographs of injuries, degloving injuries and similar, and of the type that are showing really quite horrific injuries that you might see in a surgical textbook, but wouldn't normally be printed in mainstream media. Have you, in fact, yourself seen those?
No.
Thank you. Could we have on screen LCC 001401? The actual internet, I'm not going to bring up the images. Now, this is not the easiest document to navigate, and I'm going to try to do this briefly. Could we go to page 4, please? And Sarah, could I just ask that you highlight the top quarter? Just enlarge the top quarter. So you see that this does relate to the 15th of November, yes?
Yeah.
And then you get the time.
Yeah.
And I just want you, without going to the imagery, to see something in relation to this.
Yeah.
So you see that the second one down, 3 lines within it, is skin plus D glove.
Yeah.
Yeah. And search denied. Yeah. And ignore the next one down, the one down after that. Something that was being searched for included skin plus D glove or D glow, search denied. Again, the one, so it's fine as it is at the moment on the screen. The one right at the bottom, you can see again that there's repeated searching going on for skin and D glove. Do you see that? Or repeated going to imagery from the same search. And if we can just move down to the next set. That one's denied. But then the next one, skin and D glove, search engine allowed. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And then something is denied. And then the next one, skin and D glove, engine allowed. Skin and D glove, search denied. Skin and D glove at the bottom, search denied. The next set down, please. Skin and D glove, search denied. 1108, something was denied. Then skin and D glove, engine allowed. Skin and D glove, search denied, and so on. Not on the face of it accidental.
No.
And I don't expect you to understand the technicalities, but does it appear that sometimes searches were being allowed and sometimes they were not being allowed?
Yeah, I don't understand why though.
No.
We used NetSweeper at that.
Yeah, you would have been relying on the software.
Yeah.
But it may or may not be that some of these, at least searches, if not the actual imagery, was getting through the system.
Yeah.
I won't detain you with the rest of page 4 or go through it page by page, you'll be relieved to know. But again, just say that the sense of this is not lost. If you look at page 7, and we go to the bottom quarter of the page, one sees 1108, the big one in the middle. I think it's difficult to work out exactly, but the web page is Sacramento Injury Attorney's blog. And then we've got Sacramento Attorney's Injury blog again. Progress clinical medical care for diseases to wander degloving injury. And that's 3 pages further on from that which I showed you earlier. So do you see a repeated interest in this? It looks like from trying to go to different target areas to get imageries of horrific degloving injuries. Would you agree? Just from the face of the search terms.
Yeah, it's horrible.
The school shooting, which was at one stage said to be untrue, and at another stage was said to be simply copying that which another boy had done, we find at page 437 of the hieroglyphics. I'm going to ask that the top quarter of the page be shown, please. And I'm not going to go through this item by item, but just looking at that, do you see that it seems to be searching for news articles? So Bing,
Yeah.
.com news, read article, repeated a number of times. First time through Bing, looking for, it looks like news articles. And if we can just cast down to the next set. Similar sort of pattern. Search engine allowing some of these, and it is searching, it seems, for news items. But a repeated pattern of what's being looked for seems to be items in the news.
Yeah.
And then if we go to the bottom quarter of the page, please, Sarah. Against that context, at the top of the page, one at 12:04, again, Bing.com news. And then the Daily Mail comes in, www.dailymail at 12:04, and then Bing.com, and then Daily Mail, and then 15/11/2019, 12:04, dailymail.co.uk news article, California High Street lockdown, 6 people shot. And take it from me for the moment that then links to a Daily Mail article that was headed, "Unsociable Student Gunman pulls semi-pistol out of backpack on his 16th birthday and unloads on 5 classmates in California high school, killing 2 before attempting suicide," as it's revealed. Were you aware of the search content there, other than the school shooting?
No. I've seen this print before. I remember seeing this print out at the time.
Yeah.
When Lord Anderson's report came out and said we hadn't shared the internet, I thought, yeah, we did. That was kind of my first reaction. So I had seen this before. I hadn't looked at the detail of any of the searches, and we wouldn't have put any of those searches into any of our computers because...
For obvious reasons, it's unpleasant material. All right.
We're told not to do that. We're told to let the police do it.
One understands.
Yeah.
But it's difficult when it's hieroglyphics in this way. But on the face of things, any suggestion that this was accidental searching or just copying a single link from another pupil would appear to be inaccurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can be taken from the screen, thank you. The browsing history, you explain in your statement, was kept for 14 days. You can request a report in relation to it. You say that that was done on this occasion, the request for it. If we look at paragraph 132 of your statement, it's page 36. Acorns did attempt to analyse the data seen, and then that's the exhibit that I've just taken you to. This was undertaken by Stephanie Heaton and Blue Orange. Due to Acorns being a small school, we don't have your own IT department. You say that you were informed by Ms. Heaton that the analysis of the data was not successful, as pupils had managed to override the filtering and browsing history settings. This inquiry was able to get that document from Acorns.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's 2 different things going on. I've spoken to somebody about this today because the school business manager went to LCC and got that search history downloaded. So that's why we had the search history. I'm wondering whether staff and Blue Orange were actually... Because when she describes it in her statement, she's talking about advertisements and things like that. Yeah. I'm wondering if they're looking at a different, like they're looking at pages that have been seen or something like that.
I follow.
Whether it's actually a different document that she's looking at.
There may be some confusion, we agree here, because this doesn't quite seem to tally with the existing document.
No.
All right, well, I won't seek to take that any further.
And I'm not an IT expert, I'm sorry. But that just when I read her statement, I thought, actually, I wonder if we're talking about the same thing.
Thank you. No, I follow. Thank you. And then I'm going to try to deal with the issue about was and wasn't sent to Prevent in relation to internet browsing history without going through the fine detail of the emails. My friend Mr. Boyle did that with Ms. Lewis. But what it seems to come to is this, that there is not now a copy of Ms. Lewis's emails in their pure original state.
Yeah.
One is dependent upon looking at it in an altered form where the timestamps can be seen to be unreliable. And there are 3 copies of an email that has the same text in the body. Now, you have helped us in your second statement with one of those, and that's the one that has 2 attachments, but where the second attachment is a zip file.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go to it, but you very helpfully in your second statement set out what those documents were. And I think you will agree that none of them were the Internet School History for the 15th that we've just been looking at. What is less clear is in relation to the 2 other emails timed slightly differently, but both just after 4 o'clock. And I think it comes to this, that the email trail doesn't show us what those attachments were. What we do, though, have is some contemporaneous material from the Prevent side showing that they, at the time, didn't believe that they had received the material because they make near contemporaneous reference to asking the school for it. And that appears both in material in relation to Officer B, but also in relation to an assessment that is done by what's called the JAT. And again, I don't think I need to take the detail to you, but there's 2 separate references that both suggest that Prevent had not received that. Now, against that background, although you say in your statement, the reference is paragraph 133, that the data was provided to Prevent, can you in fact say that that is reliable and accurate, or is that simply your belief?
That's my belief.
Right.
And I remember it being discussed at the strategy meetings that the data was there, and I hadn't seen the green Excel spreadsheet before until I found it in the CPOM document. But when you put that white document up on the screen, then I'd seen that before, and I think we'd printed that off and handed it over, but I've no proof of that, and it's not contained in any of the notes. The only other reference to it is DC Murphy refers to it, I think.
Yes.
But I've got no trail in school of that happening.
So I think that the DC Murphy reference, so as MERP 007786, page 10 at paragraph 33.
Thank you.
Noted that Acorns were to provide a statement regarding AR's online search history. But there's an indication perhaps that it was never provided because it was no longer available. So should we therefore read paragraph 133 where there is, and I'm not raising it critically of you, but where you say in paragraph 133 it was provided to Prevent as an attachment, that it remains your belief that that was the case?
Yeah, and I think I made a second statement because there was an email that said that they'd received a dump of data, and I wondered if that was it.
Yeah. So within the emails that we were looking at, the original referral, the response to that says that an internal comment by Prevent effectively says that it's a dump of data.
Yeah.
And there's a request for it to be resent, but I'm afraid that's part and parcel of the same thing.
Right.
And your second statement gives us that breakdown of what we know with the attachments, but whether this was one email sent or 2 emails sent, and whether there were more attachments to different emails, I don't think you were sending the emails. And
it wasn't me that was,
And so does it come to this, that you believe that that's the case, but...
And I remember it being discussed at the strategy meetings, but I've got no notes of that and no trail of that.
But was I don't think there's any indication that the actual content of the browser history was discussed. So the
No,
sort of
it was that,
the
it was
detail.
that white. I've seen that before.
What I took you to with the
Yeah.
degloving references.
I've seen
You'd
that.
seen it in that format.
Yeah, I've seen it in that format, but without reading what it actually, just as a list of gobbledygook, really.
Yeah. But you're not suggesting that that document was discussed at the strategy meeting with it all in front of you?
I think it was. I remember it being discussed or handed over or something, but it's
Hazy.
I can't remember.
All right. If we work for the moment on the assumption that having raised an interest in school shootings on the internet and it being said that the school internet browser history was available,
Yeah.
if in fact some error or oversight was made by the school and it hadn't been sent to Prevent,
Yeah.
would you have expected Prevent to keep chasing you for it?
Yeah. So what I'm really surprised about with the first referral is that there was no triangulation. So we sent in what we thought was happening and all our concerns and all the risk and what he'd been searching for and all of those sort of things. They then went to meet AR and Dad, who said basically that the teachers are picking on him and that he just clicked on a link. But nobody ever then came back to us to check that or ask for any more information or check with anybody else. Even they accepted that at face value.
And does it surprise you that Prevent, if they hadn't received the internet browser history, and it seems accepted by Prevent that they didn't analyse it, but if it's right that they didn't receive it at all, are you surprised that they closed the first referral without having obtained it?
Yeah, without asking, because it was there. So we had it. So if it seems strange to me that we would have it and not share it, because we were, if anything, we're oversharers.
Thank you. There was some subsequent use of the internet after the first referral had actually gone. The nunchucks, I think, was after that, for example. And the 4th of December, I think, a decision made to prohibit AR from accessing the internet.
Yeah.
Do you think that topping up that information might have been useful to give that to Prevent?
Yeah.
It's difficult to work out from that reading, from that readout, whether it was just searches that were being allowed or whether the imagery was actually being able to be accessed. I don't suppose you know one way or the other.
Only that NetSweeper and the firewalls and all the rest of it at school are really strong. I can't even find stuff that I want to get on myself sometimes, and that's certainly not at that level. You wouldn't be able to get on the dark web or, just carry out
I don't think the suggestion is that any of this material is on the dark web, but surgical type pictures of degloving injuries, if they were able to be brought up, and I do put it in that way, if they were able, you can't help as to why they weren't being blocked.
No.
Thank you. I think you've strengthened that since with a live monitoring type system.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the issues that was raised for your consideration in your statement was whether, in fact, you had enough material to make a Prevent referral at a slightly earlier time. And I think what you say about that in your statement was that it was cumulative and it was building up, but actually by making the referral when you did, you were able to include more information. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm asked to explore with you in relation to the first referral. While you say there was no triangulation and you feel that they didn't come back, there was, I think, a reasonable amount of contact with Prevent. So there was a response by email, I've just summarised it to you early on in relation to the materials and request for further information. And then on the 11th of December, I think there was contact between Officer B and the head around the hockey stick attack. There was the joint attendance at the strategy meeting, which PC Thompson, the Prevent officer, attended on the 17th of September and again on the 16th of January 2020. So there was that level of contact. Would you agree?
Yeah, but the decision on what happened following that Prevent referral was just a statement made at that second strategy meeting that there was no ideology, and that it wasn't going to be followed up.
Did you feel able to indicate dissent from that and say that surprises us, we're really concerned?
Well, at that point, I thought that's what they were looking for, was ideology. I didn't realise that there could be a referral around fascination with violence, or it was all around the training, and everything else at that time was about terrorism and Islam and white nationalism and all of that sort of stuff. So I think we were all looking for an ideology and radicalisation rather than something more mixed. So I accepted that was their decision.
I follow you. It's a point of detail, but at paragraph 137, can we just bring it up briefly? Page 37, please, Sarah. Paragraph 137, you say that Prevent also confiscated AR's computer. We know, in fact, that was Merpol, that was Merseyside Police,
Right.
Who confiscated the devices in the aftermath of the December. Would you accept that?
Yeah.
Turning to the second referral, if we could just have on screen LCC 001526. I think you may have been able to follow on screen or in the public gallery when this was raised with Ms. Lewis, so LCC 001526. And if we could just go to page 3, please. So just remind yourself of this. The original email is from the Prevent officer, PC Thompson, and it's going to your colleague, Mrs. Lewis. Just wanted to check that there are no further concerns in relation to the Instagram post. So this is the Gaddafi post that had been passed on by Mr. Gujian. Go to the top of the page. Mrs. Lewis replies to Officer Thompson, apologies that I wasn't available to speak, and we note that it had been an attempted phone call that was made by Prevent. So apologies I wasn't available to speak. I'm working from home. In relation to AR, no further concerns at this time. I've copied Maggie Allred, AR's high support tutor, into this email. Maggie has informed myself and you, our acting head teacher, that in relation to the Instagram post from AR, there was a possibility that he could have written the actual post as it appears to be in his style of writing in relation to his ASD. Now that was looked at, and in fact he wasn't the author. Yeah. If we could just go to page 2. We see that Ms. Allred replied to that. And just note, if you would, that I think for the first time that you were copied into the email exchange at this stage. So I assume that there was a concern. I'm concerned, as I think he may not be active, but he could easily be radicalised and would be a huge risk if this happened. Can I chat to you about it tomorrow and see what we think? And then if we go to page 1, Mrs. Lewis, bottom of the page. Don't worry, PC Thompson, a Carmen from Prevent, will be looking into it. She's worked with AR before and knows about his background. She has more than likely done a lot of the legwork already. And just wants to know if we have any further immediate concerns, and at the moment there don't appear to be any. So that I think is a reference to the fact that it was the same prevent officer for the first referral, of which I think you and Mrs. Lewis would have been aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the top of the page, the further comment that Mr. Boyle asked Mrs. Lewis about. So where we get to in your statement, paragraph 161, please, back at LCC 001773, page 43, paragraph 161. I think you did have a discussion with Mrs. Allred about this, is that right?
I did, yeah.
What can you remember about the conversation?
It was around the contact we'd had from John from Yacht, who said that there'd been a falling out with Dad and AR. And that was the first time we'd had any indication that the relationship was starting to suffer a little bit. And Mrs. Allred thought that because AR and Dad had a falling out, that made him more open to radicalisation. So we did have that discussion. And at the time, with hindsight, she's absolutely right, but at the time, I didn't think that was substantial enough based on one incident that Yacht had kind of closed. They didn't think there was anything substantial there, that was enough to flag that up to prevent.
Right. So,
but with hindsight, that was the wrong decision. I should have put it forward.
So Mrs. Allred's sense that she was worried as the high support teacher and the additional information that Father and AR had a falling out, which had been relayed to you, you didn't feel that sort of crossed the threshold in something that was substantive enough to raise as a concern?
No. But with hindsight, our instincts were absolutely right, but there was nothing to substantiate it or evidence it at the time.
Thank you. And in your statement also, I think you say that on reflection, these concerns should have been passed on, communicated to prevent. Yes?
Yeah.
In relation to the third referral, that was in relation to the London Bridge attack being looked at.
Yeah.
And in relation to that, there is this feature, is there not, that that was the very first day that AR had his, my words, internet ban lifted.
Yeah.
You say at paragraph 167 in relation to this that the feedback, can we just have it on screen, it's page 44.
Yeah.
That the feedback from Prevent was that the third referral was a knee-jerk reaction. Can I ask you this? How did you come to say in your statement that the feedback was that it was a knee-jerk reaction?
Because that was the conversation that I'd had with Maggie at the time. So I think somebody must have phoned Maggie or spoken to Mrs. Allred. I just think in my head she's Maggie.
Don't worry, I don't think it's the most significant.
I think somebody had spoken to her at the time because she then sent out an email to staff about him working on the computers and saying that we'd had the feedback that he was only looking at websites that were legitimate and that he just had strong political views, but so to let him on the computer, but to be really, really wary of what he was going on. So she'd had that feedback.
If we look at I'm asked to explore this with you. If we look at CTP NW 30143, and at page 2, please. If we could have the bottom box highlighted, please, Sarah, the across the page. This is an entirely internal Prevent document, right? And we see the internal commentary. Who is making it for present purposes doesn't matter. But it says, third paragraph, the ongoing advice to staff has always been to refer should they feel that he shows any vulnerabilities going forward. This can sometimes lead to a knee-jerk referral, this one being highlighted in case. I'm not going to go to it, but later on in the same document, still internal comments, the internal comments of Prevent go on to say that this referral was made with the best of intentions, all right? I suppose the point is this. Have you, from disclosure in the inquiry, seen that reference to knee-jerk?
I might have seen it in Lord Anderson's report. That might be where I've got that phrase from.
All right.
But I do remember the conversation at the time, which was that he was looking at stuff that anybody could look at and that he was allowed to have the political views. So I might have picked that phrase up from the Prevent report. I've not seen it from an internal report, but that might be why it's in my head.
Thank you. In relation to this third referral, the fact that it was raised by Alfonso with AR, you've touched on this, was, I think, a significant factor in a worsening of relations between the school and AR and the school and Alfonso. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think you and your colleagues saw that, correct me if this is not a fair summary, but I think you saw that as a breach of trust by Alfonso because he had been, as you recall it, specifically asked not to share the information. Is that right?
Yeah.
And by sharing the information, that had then led to further issues with AR, wanting to press that issue, demanding to see it, and so on. How confident are you? Because I think the fact that there was a clear request not to share may be disputed by Alfonso. How clear are you that he was specifically asked not to share that information?
I did check that last night because I read his statement, and there's a couple of things that happened. One in May of 21, we had the EHCP review, and he'd shared the EHC paperwork with him, and we'd told him at that point that not to share information of that kind because AR wasn't able. I think specifically it was because he wasn't accepting of his ASC diagnosis with the EHCP stuff. Then we did the Prevent referral and we discussed it with Dad. There are a couple of conversations recorded with Mum because AR's asking to see the Prevent referral and getting very angry about it. He got quite aggressive with Mrs. Lewis, got up, walked out, and she wouldn't show it him. Mrs. Lewis has discussed it with Mum why, or it might have been Maggie, I can't remember. One of them has discussed it with Mum about why he can't see those documents, and that happens twice. And then on the 16th of July, there's a specific conversation recorded on my chronology, and I can't remember if it was on CPOMs or not, but on the 16th of July, there's a specific conversation with Dad to say, do not share these documents with him.
So we take it from that you're very confident that that was conveyed. I follow. Finally, in relation to Prevent matters then, paragraph 171 of your statement, again, Mrs. Lewis was asked about this, it's page 45. There were these further comments in January of 2022 in relation to matters relating to the Holocaust, and I don't need to go through them, I'm not going to go to CPOMs because they were read out. And although that was perhaps in the context of what might have been thought about a political discussion and treating mass killings in an equal way, would you agree that together with some of the comments that might appropriately have been thought to be anti-Semitic and were challenged as such, that taken together that cluster of comments would have justified a referral to Prevent again?
I do, but there are reasons why we didn't do it. It wasn't just that we just ignored it. There was a thought process behind it. So we'd had a lot of issues with Dad and AR over the third referral,
Yep.
which hadn't been acted on by Prevent and hadn't resulted in anything. We felt really let down by that. Because it just caused a massive breakdown in the relationship with Dad and with AR. The outcome from that is a strategy we agreed with CAMS, which was that we would discuss anything with him and write down what we thought his view should be around that, and do the kind of mentoring that we would have expected Prevent to do, if you like, so that we would do that with them, and we agreed that with CAMS. And then again after this, we spoke to CAMS and said, this is all, he's coming out with all these views, this is what we're doing with it, and they said, yeah, that's exactly the right thing to do. So that's why we didn't go down the Prevent. We just thought it would cause more harm to go down Prevent, and that they wouldn't do anything with it anyway.
The Chair has your answer.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a hypothetical?
Yeah.
If things had gone more smoothly and you felt that there had been a more collegiate interagency relationship with Prevent,
Yeah.
so against the background of other concerns that you'd drawn to Prevent's attention, if there hadn't been this perception of difficulty and a concern about lack of action, would you have shared that information with Prevent?
Yes.
All right.
But the decision not to was because of the harm it would cause in terms of the relationship.
I understand, and it's partly why I've put 171 in your statement on the screen, because I think you say that the sharing of the third referral had created significant difficulties, the factors that you'd raised. You also exasperated to, in your words, consistently raise concerns in the way that we did, and didn't receive reassurance that some action was taking place. And had further referrals been lodged, do you think the response would have been in line with the response or lack of it to previous referrals?
Yeah.
And as you've indicated, what was being done was not to put it to one side, but a structured approach to seeking to deal with it and mitigate the risk.
Yeah.
My words, in-house.
In-house, yeah. With the blessing
in that
of CAMS. Yeah.
With things as they had, in fact, been, do you think on reflection you should still have shared that information to Prevent?
Yeah, I do.
And paragraph 172, in dealing with the Prevent referrals as they did, I believe that Counter-Terrorism North West Police failed to have regard for our experience as a pupil referral unit. We are experienced in dealing with challenging pupils. We are experienced in identifying and addressing concerns. We were sufficiently concerned about AR that we made 3 referrals, which tells its own story. The police failed to have regard for the fact that we had experience of dealing with AR on a day-to-day basis and had raised legitimate concerns about his behaviour. Over the page, beyond our exasperation with Prevent and the referrals, the Prevent process itself also brought about the breakdown in the relationship between Acorns and AR and his father. You deal with the further damage. And 174, on reflection, whilst I regret not submitting the further Prevent referrals in 22, I think by this point Acorns had lost faith that anything would be done.
Yeah.
Does that remain your evidence?
Absolutely.
The choice of Maggie Allred, I think, was deliberate on your part.
It was.
In the absence of a bespoke funded resource. Why was she such a good fit?
She was my most senior teacher, the most highly paid, most skilled teacher. We'd been using her to reach our most hard to reach pupils. So the ones that we're talking about that are educated off-site, she would do the ones off-site that were too high risk to have in school, and she had really good results in building relationships with them and turning them round and getting results for them, and working with hard to reach pupils and hard to reach families, in actual fact, building that relationship of trust up that we needed to do.
Experience with children with autism?
Yeah, lots.
Did anyone else, you think, in the education sphere know AR better than her?
No, nobody than Maggie, really. Sorry, Mrs. Allred.
And it was she who was particularly concerned, as those emails around the second prevent referral show, at least in internal communications, that he was not active, but she was concerned that he could be radicalised, and how serious the damage would be if he was.
We never underestimated how risky and how dangerous he was.
Thank you. I won't ask you, in fact, anything about the handover of information to Pressfield School, because the previous witness dealt with it and our next witness will deal with it. But you have dealt with aspects of that in your statement, so that will stand as your evidence. Okay. Just in terms of risk assessments, could we just have on screen LCC 30707, please? Could you just help us with what this type of document is?
It's a risk assessment for pupils at school, so it's our internal risk assessment, if you like. It doesn't deal with risk to the wider community necessarily.
Thank you. And we can see that it's got various dates on here, so it looks like it's been updated with staff name undertaking it. If we just go over the page. The severity grading, I think 1 is the lower and 3 is the higher, is that right?
Yeah.
And aggressive to peers has been observed and documented, and the severity rating is 2. But of actual violence to peers, the severity rating was the top.
Yeah.
And aggressive to staff, it was the top of the 3 as well.
Yeah.
With some indications which I don't need to go through in relation to each one as to why, but we note in violence to peers that how the referral came about, the child line, is referred to, and also the third paragraph down, the hockey stick incident as well.
Yeah.
We'll just go over the page. And we can see the other type of risks that are raised in relation to that. And mental health problems is a severity rating of 3 as well.
Yeah.
We may hear evidence from Pressfield about other risk assessments and how this was being interpreted, but certainly your internal risk assessment put the risk of harm to others as the top of 3 ratings, would that be? And that's your own risk assessment. In terms of an overall responsibility as to who the lead agency was for taking forward the assessment of risk, in that late 29, early 2020 period, was there a lead agency who had responsibility for that?
Not that I'm aware of. There should have been, yeah.
There should have been.
That's what the strategy meetings were trying to come to, a multi-agency understanding of the risk.
But it didn't come to a multi-agency understanding of risk. And did it come to a multi-agency understanding of who the lead agency was to be either?
I think everybody just gave it to us. But, yeah, they just kind of pushed it onto us, didn't they?
And after that period, so after the immediate period of handling, perhaps ending with the 9th of March, the letters out of the FCAMS meeting, from April 2020 until AR moved to Pressfield, did you have an understanding of who the lead agency was across all of these agencies, who was the lead agency for holding the risk that AR posed to other people?
I don't think there was a lead agency. We just managed the risk ourselves because we were kind of left to get on with it. And there wasn't any input there. So from that last meeting on the 4th of March 2020, CAMS weren't involved again until February 21 when he got his diagnosis. The police weren't involved, Prevent weren't involved. Yacht were carrying out the referral order and early help were kind of dipping in and out, but it was just us dealing with him.
Mrs. Hodson, is there anything that you would like to add beyond the questions that I've asked?
No.
I'm just going to turn to my left. Just Mr. Bowen, I think.
Usual rules, Mr. Byrne.
I understand. I ask questions on behalf of the bereaved families. I've just got three very brief areas I want to explore with you. Information received upon allocation of the placement, that's the first point. Second, just very briefly about questions about your decisions not to exclude, either on a fixed or a permanent term basis. And then a specific question on the content of ECHP plans. So the first one, you tell us about the allocation of the place at paragraphs 10 to 13 of your witness statement. And there's a reference there to the pupil access team and information on the form. And that seems to suggest that you had the core information at the beginning about intent to stab and carrying knives.
It says about he's carried a knife into school. It doesn't say that he's done it 10 times or... Yeah,
that's what I just wanted to clear up, because at paragraph 77 for your notes, LCC, so the statement 1773, page 21.
Thank you.
You quoting Jane Eccleston's response to Peter Oates, I think on the 18th of December. There's a clear statement there that you had to go digging for all the information. So is it you knew enough when you were told you were going to have to accept this boy? You knew enough then?
We had those three documents. We had an initial referral form, which just said has taken a knife into school, and I think somebody had handwritten on the bottom about it was emotionless and no remorse. It was like handwritten on the bottom of the form. We had the letter to his parents, and we had the letter from Alderhay saying that they weren't accepting the CAMS referral.
Okay.
And then everything else we had to find ourselves.
So, all right, so just at the beginning, did you know enough from the get-go to think to yourself, we are unsuitable, or it's worth a try?
We don't have a choice.
Well, that was my second question.
We're not allowed to say we're not having them.
Right. Well, that deals quickly with my next point, which is it was a true allocation. It's imposed upon you as a
It's a statutory referral.
Right, okay. All right, okay, thank you. The second point about your decision, and you very openly, decently said you didn't want to impose the risk on somebody else. Was there any question of being pressured by anybody to just keep on holding the baby?
In terms of risk, yes, but in terms of not excluding him, no. As a PRU, we don't never do a Perm-Ex. We do Perm-Exes, but that is our function is to take in other people's Perm-Exes and work with them. We wouldn't normally then permanently exclude somebody, because where else are they going to go?
So it would just be, it's a matter of total last resort. And no question of a fixed term exclusion.
We could have done a fixed term exclusion, but it wouldn't have meant very much, really. Okay,
and just to clarify this point about, I don't want to get into the legislation, but there's education off-site you've talked about. That's, I think, 29A of the 2002 Act, which is a power that you have, or the governing body have, correct? As opposed to Section 19 duties, which are a duty.
I don't know the guidance off.
All right, okay, I'll deal with that with Mrs. Dixon.
Paraphrase for me.
All right, okay. And just finally, you'll be delighted to know, sir, the ECHP plan, you deal with at 109, specifically about your attempts and your sort of battle, really, to have transparency about all of the stuff that worried you. A section on risk you refer to. The question is this. In your experience, which must be pretty extensive, of ECHP plans and prior to that statements of special educational need, is risk information of that type something you would typically see?
No. They tend to be around learning difficulties, education needs, social. So that level of risk isn't necessarily written into them.
But wouldn't it be part of, I can't remember the precise section of the statements now, but you deal with social needs and behavioural needs.
So you describe it.
Surely to goodness, in a case like this, it would be completely misleading to the new school to have that information excluded.
There's a bit in the EHCP about the fact he's had a yacht order, and so that's all in there. There's a whole section around all the interaction he's had with CAMS and mental health and what's going on there. The rest of it is about his learning needs and his difficulties with social interaction, and the way I think it says about, that well, the first one did anyway, says about him not being able to take people who disagree with him and how he might react badly to that, and all of that sort of stuff is in there.
But there was, I don't want to spend too long on this, but there is a sort of ping-pong battle between you and the father about, and you lose, they win.
Yeah.
Your evidence then is that that not including it, a decision by the caseworker in the SEND department, doesn't surprise you not to have it in which case is it a systemic problem? It's
a bit of a strange one, because at that point we felt that the risk had diminished enough because of the work he'd done with Maggie and the work we'd done in building that trust. If he had that trusted adult relationship there, then someone to talk to, somebody to come out with the sort of things he was talking about and be mentored through the sort of things he's thinking about, his political views, all of that sort of stuff. That brought the risk right down. We'd spoken to Yacht before the EHCP and said, where did they consider the risk lay in terms of him reoffending, and they said there was low to no risk.
Okay.
So we'd actually sought that out in advance. So at that point, we thought the risk was low enough for him to go to another school. We weren't pushing a pupil that we thought was really, really risky onto another school. It was only on the 17th of March, the incident on the bus, that we thought the risk had gone up again.
Last point, I promise you.
Yeah.
But I just want to drive at the concept, the principle behind this. Assume that everything you've just said was not the case, that you were still acutely concerned about the risk, and knowing that there was an absence of risk information in the plan. Do you think it would still have been excluded by the local authority?
I really can't comment on that.
All right.
It would depend on the degree of risk, I think.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nearly finished.
Okay.
Just two things from me. Could we have up on the screen, please, LCC 30132 and page 6.
Aye.
Yes. Now, I don't necessarily want you to name names, but put generally from which organisation at the very least was from where was the pressure coming for you to take out the word sinister and to put in a word which is not the equivalent, inappropriate, and then to take out the whole of the next two lines?
That was the professional views that was submitted by CAMS.
And were you given an explanation as to why you should withhold information that you thought was relevant to be put in this document?
There was a couple of things that happened. One was that I was challenged quite heavily and told that no child should ever be described as sinister. Okay.
All right.
And that as a professional I should not be using those words. And the other issue was that I was kind of, I don't really want to say this one out loud. I was told that that my attitude towards the risk around him was because I perceived him to be a black boy with a knife. So in other words, I was racially profiling him. And that effectively shut me up.
So that was the accusation that was made against you?
Yeah, that was the point at which that professionally just closes me down completely, doesn't it?
I can understand that. Thank you. My other question is this. There appears to be many strengths in CPOMs,
Yeah,
but I just want to ask you about two things. One is that once a member of staff, a teacher, puts in an entry, for them, it then disappears.
yeah,
So there's no running record.
yeah, unless they're at a certain level. So unless they're a DSL. So as a DSL, I can go in and see everything and see the running record.
But for below you,
Below, you can't.
is that a weakness?
Is that what, sorry?
A weakness?
A weakness? It can be. Yeah, it can be.
In terms of them continuing to have an understanding
Yeah,
as to what the risk level potentially is.
yeah.
Right.
And
The other thing was this.
That's why we have the risk assessment thing, though. The risk assessment.
The other thing was this. I think you only get the information as the receiving school once he's been admitted.
Yeah.
Is that a weakness?
Yes, I would say that's a weakness.
Because you're not being put completely in the picture
Yeah,
prior to the arrival of the new student.
yeah.
And you
Particularly
may
for us as a PRU, that's quite a challenge sometimes.
And there may be things that you would want to say about the suitability of your school as being the receiving school.
We can't turn any referrals away.
No.
We're not allowed to by law. We have to take them.
But whether the referral takes place at all could be subject to things that you say about it before the referral is made.
Yeah. The other thing that would be really useful is knowing if there's other agencies involved, if they've got what level of child protection they're at, and all that sort of stuff. So that comes with the CPOMs. So that would help.
I want to reiterate what Mr. Moss said at the beginning and express my thanks for the very considerable assistance you've provided to the inquiry.
Thank you.
I have been extremely unkind to the stenographer.
So I was about to say that the fault is mine. The session has been far too long, and I'm so sorry because I can see that it really has been too long. Could I therefore ask for 15 minutes?
Certainly. I'll sit again in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. Yes, Mr. Boyle.
Could you give your full name to the court, please?
Yeah, it's Mrs. Cheryl Lynn Smith.
Thank you. Could we have on screen PRE 201806? Do you recognise that document as your witness statement, Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. We see in the top right it's dated the 29th of August 2025. And is that true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I ask you please about your career history? You've been a teacher at Pressfield School since September 2000, is that right?
Yes.
And you've been a designated safeguard lead since 2014?
That's right.
And in 2023, you became an assistant head teacher.
Yes.
And you were promoted to deputy head teacher in January 2024.
Yes.
Thank you. In terms of the role of a DSL, designated safeguard lead, could you just give a brief outline of what that involved?
Yeah, so as the DSL of the school, it was my job to make sure that we fully supported all of the students who were supported by formal plans, such as a child protection plan or a child in need plan or an early help plan, but also wider children who we needed to support outside of a formal plan. I was also the designated teacher for looked after children. And so I would write reports on behalf of the school as well, attend meetings, multi-agency meetings. There was a senior leader in charge of behaviour. So he was in charge of risk assessments and behaviour, not me. But we worked together as a team, really, to make sure we were supporting all of our students as best as we could.
Thank you. Just to try and break that down in terms of your colleague in charge of behaviour, were you looking at the risk that, when you considered safeguarding, were you looking at the risk that a pupil, obviously the risk to them, would you also consider the risk they posed to
Primarily to them was my role. If a student did pose a risk to others, then the assistant head at the time would produce a manual handling plan, and we are all trained in some holds for students who physically need that support.
Thank you. So when you say manual handling, you mean restraints potentially?
Yeah, so it's de-escalation is the main theory behind it. It's team teach. And if de-escalation and everything else doesn't work, then as a last resort, there were a small number of students who did need to be held for their safety or the safety of others. But as I say, the assistant head was leading that. I was a teacher at the time that we're talking about with extra responsibility for safeguarding children.
So you say, and we can see it up on screen there, that you taught 2 days a week and 3 days you spent on safeguarding. What were you teaching?
No, actually, it was the other way round. So it was 2 days, but it went up in September 2020. So in the time that you're talking about, when AR came to us, I was teaching 3 days a week. I'm an RE teacher, and I taught some cookery and some personal development as well.
Thank you. In terms of your work as a DSL, what systems did you have for recording safeguarding information?
So we had, obviously I'd been doing this job for a while, we had always worked using paper and hard copies of documents. But during the pandemic, there were some discussions around bringing in CPOMs. So that was brought in, I think, in 2021. So when we had AR on roll, we had started using it. We weren't using it to its full extent, though.
And can you remember when it came in, some stage at 2021?
Not sure about that, but we could find out.
Thank you. And when it was brought in, were you given training on how to use it?
I sought training on how to use it from CPOMs, yeah. So you get given like a technical person, and then you tell them how you want it set up, and they create it for you in effect. And then there are things that you can control as well. So I know you were looking earlier at the little coloured symbols, and
the flags,
you can create all of that yourself, yeah. And you can also decide who's got higher level access and who's got standard access. So we were using it at the time. It was up and running for staff to put their concerns on about children, and then that would either come to myself or to the Deputy DSL Mark at the time, and we would usually have a conversation at some point and then action it if needed.
Thank you. You might have heard the questions being asked about level of access to CPOM.
Yes.
How did it work at Pressfield?
So I had two-factor authentication access, so did the Deputy DSL, the head and the Deputy.
And that gave you access to all the CPOM's records, but is this right? A teacher who didn't have that safeguarding role would not have access to the records?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I ask you some questions about Pressfield School? It was a specialist provision for children with ASD, is that right?
Yeah, so students come to us when their primary need is autism.
Thank you. And how about students that have been excluded? Do they commonly come to Pressfield?
We wouldn't say no to them because they've been excluded or anything like that. They would go through the same application process as everybody else.
And was it common to receive students who had been excluded?
No.
What about pupils with a history of violence?
Yes, we did have a small number of students who had some violence in their histories, but when you've got autism, sometimes when you go into crisis, you may exhibit some violence and then be horrendously remorseful afterwards and feel terrible and really need a lot of support to get over how you've behaved, because some of our students would do that, and that's why they were with us, because they needed a high level of support.
And are you drawing a contrast with what you saw with AR there?
We didn't see AR be violent. We didn't see AR much at all. But we didn't have a handling plan or anything for him that I'm aware of.
In terms of security measures, we heard, and thinking perhaps about weapons, which AR obviously had a history of, we heard about the security measures at the Acorn School as a pupil referral unit, like wanding, for example. Is it right Pressfield didn't have those same sort of measures?
We didn't back then, no. We have since purchased a wand, but not for him. It was for somebody else. So at the discretion of the head, or in her absence, the deputy, a student can be wanded now, but back then we didn't possess a wand.
Thank you. So it's not a standard measure that every...
Absolutely not, no, not at all.
Yeah. So, and does the strength of your answer indicate that the profile of pupil you have is very different then to the sort of profile in a pupil referral unit?
Yeah, I would say so. We have a massive range of students, and so we offer different educational pathways depending on what those students need. So we have, I would say all of our students are vulnerable. Probably all of them sit with some level of anxiety associated to their autism, and they all have, certain needs associated to their autism, but they will be a completely different person to the next child in the class, and you just have to tailor your approach to them, really.
Yes.
But yeah.
Thank you. Yes, of course, Pressfield was serving a completely different function to a pupil referral unit.
Yeah, and a lot of our students do have comorbidities, so they may have autism and ADHD, or autism and dyslexia, or medical needs, so you can have some really quite complex young people with us.
Thank you. Can I ask about, you've already touched on this, your engagement with AR?
Yes.
He formally enrolled on the 28th of March 2020. I think you referenced in your statement that you had seen him at least once in school, is that right?
Yes, so I had seen him. So AR went into the sixth form provision, which it is at the time, like its own little entity, but within the main body of the school. So you have to go through a couple of sets of doors to get there. And he was at the back of a classroom, in a sixth form classroom, and I just saw the back of his head. He just was sat in class.
Fine. And so you didn't have much opportunity to tell how he presented while he was at school?
No.
Is this right? You did also carry out home visits and you saw him at home?
I did, yes. So I saw him multiple times at home. That's right.
And how did you assess him?
He was very passive. He didn't really communicate with us at all, but for the odd word, his dad would speak to us, sort of in place of him, of AR, I suppose. So, yeah, we didn't get much interaction at all.
Do you know how many times you saw him at home?
I want to say probably 3 or 4.
Okay. You tell us that you never felt unsafe in any of those visits.
No, I didn't. I didn't know. I had tried to visit him, but not been able to gain access. And so, in the end, a police colleague came with me, but that wasn't because I didn't feel safe. It was because I was hoping the parents would listen a bit more, to be honest, and let us in.
Yeah, we'll come on to the steps taken to try and get access to AR. But did you meet AR's parents enough or have enough interaction with them to gain a relationship with them?
No, that was regrettable, really. We didn't get a relationship, and I was particularly concerned that I didn't know what their parenting style was, and we weren't seeing him. So I was concerned that we didn't really know what was going on when he wasn't in school. I did interact more with Alphonse than Letitia. I think Letitia and I only met once when she waved me away from the door and told me no, that I wasn't coming in.
And what were the circumstances around that?
I'd just gone over to see if I could see AR, and Letitia came to the door. She'd just woken up, and I appreciated that maybe she'd been on a night shift and that I had disturbed her. I was apologetic. I said I was just doing my job. Could I please see him? And she said no, and she said no, and waved me away.
Were you given any reason for that?
No.
Thank you. I want to move on for those impressions to the handover from AR from Acorns to Pressfields. And just to put this into context, the AR, as I think I said, was enrolled at Pressfield in late March of 22. 28th of March, I think it was. And I think you tell us in your statement that you had a period of being unwell that I think started on the 21st of March. You were briefly able to return to work on the 29th, and you were admitted as an inpatient around this time. And I think you returned on the 18th of April. 22.
It was the 3rd of May that I went back to work. I was signed off to return on the bank holiday, but then, so it was the day after, it was the 3rd of May.
Could we just have your statement up just to
Have
check?
I got that wrong in the statement? Sorry.
Well, let's see. So your statement, I think, suggests the 18th of April. It's
Oh, well, I've got that wrong then. Sorry about that.
page 1, paragraph 7.
Yeah, that's my fault. Apologies.
The statement's wrong, or the date you're giving out?
The date wasn't April. It was the 3rd of May that I went back in.
Thank you. I think elsewhere, your paragraph 33, you've told us you were signed off till the 2nd.
Yes, which I think was a bank holiday, so I actually went back in on the 3rd.
But I think you also say you were able to engage with matters and attend meetings where possible in this time.
Yes, so at the beginning of my absence, so I went home at about 11 o'clock on the 21st, and then I felt very bad about leaving the school short, and there were a lot of people off at the time. I thought I must have COVID, but every test I did was negative. So I went home feeling unwell, and I probably shouldn't have gone in that day, but because of the situation in school, because I knew I was leaving them short, I continued to try and get across things at home as best as I could.
Yeah.
So I attended a virtual meeting for one of our students who I would say had previously been on a child protection plan, high level, children with high level needs. And I tried to keep across things as best as I could, knowing that when I went back, I'd need to pick it up. I returned on the 29th, but again left halfway through the morning feeling unwell. And I went to Southport A&E at the beginning of April, and they told me I had to stay in, and then that was it.
Yeah, thank you. We don't need to go into detail in this respect, so the reference is paragraph 35 of the statement, but you tell us also that you were dealing with a very serious illness of a close family member.
Yes.
Yeah. Moving then to the chronology at this time, the first contact I think we see that you have with the Acorns is on the 21st of March 2022. Could we have up, please, LCC 201346? And page 4. Thank you. And if we could just enlarge in the large record. Mrs. Smith, we've already seen this today, but we see here, don't we, a record of a conversation that you had in the Acorns CPOMS record, and you spoke to Mrs. Allred, who we've heard about from the Acorns, correct?
Yes.
And we see the information shared was, looking at about a quarter of the way down the record, the AR's name's redacted, but he ran away from home on Thursday with a kitchen knife with a plan to stab somebody, and it talks about him literally taking information from Sam, his CAMS worker. And we see the description given there. At the bottom of that paragraph, it says a full CPOMS report has been sent to the school, but school will send an up-to-date report with the Encompass report on from Thursday. And you, I think, asked some questions we see in the next section. And then about halfway down the next paragraph, it says that you'd not seen the CPOMS. Mrs. Allred said that she thinks that the head, Hayley Dawson, has seen it, and she agreed to get a full CPOMS report sent to her before the meeting. And then the last section there, we see Mrs. Lewis agreed to send a full CPOMS report to you, and your email address and Mr. Rigby's address are below. Do you remember that conversation?
I've tried really hard to remember that conversation. I can't recollect it. But when I look at what it says that I said, they're the kind of things I would say.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably the case. It's just that I can't remember it.
Yeah. So I don't ask you with the idea that it might not be right.
Okay.
If we see in the top left, we see it's dated the 21st of March, so it seems to be a contemporaneous record. There's no reason to think that anything in there is wrong, is there?
No. And Hayley was not our head teacher. She was the head of sixth form, and she was in charge of AR's transition, so she went out and did the visit to Acorns and everything else.
Do you agree, Mrs. Smith, that the information that you received about AR running away from home on Thursday with a kitchen knife with a plan to stab somebody was very concerning information to receive?
Yes.
Thank you. And as a DSL, that background must have meant that you wanted to know as much as you possibly could about AR so you could consider his safeguarding, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And the route towards doing that was to receive the CPOMS records. Do you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. As we know, those records were sent to you on the 22nd of March, and we have the egress email. I'm not going to pull it up, but no doubt you've seen it.
I only opened it in September 2024 after the horrific incident in the July.
Yeah, so you didn't see it at the time, you've seen it since.
I haven't read it in detail since, because by the time we opened it, he was off our roll, so it wasn't for me to read it. But I have seen in the press and recently through the questions that yourselves have asked me, a summary of what was contained in it, so I know a rough account.
Thank you. Sorry, I actually wasn't asking about the contents of the CPOMs, but instead just the email that was sent to you. So I've given you the...
Oh, sorry, no, it didn't. Having looked at it, obviously, later, when you get an egress email, it doesn't say the person's name that it's associated with or anything. So there was no... I was trying to keep across things when I was sick as best as I could until I couldn't, really.
Yeah.
And that one was one I didn't open, I just missed it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was about him.
Thank you. So the reference you've been given it is the 22nd of March 22. I think in fairness to you, Mrs. Smith, you're right. It doesn't say what the contents is, but it does say that it's from Miss Lewis, correct?
I don't think so, no. It just went, because it wasn't opened, you see, so it just says egress, and it could be about anything.
Okay, I think we better pull it up then.
Oh, right, okay.
ERE 201717. Sorry, PRE 201717. Thank you. And we see in the top left.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember seeing that, but I didn't know Jan Lewis anyway. I didn't know who she was. So it might, I can see she was from Lancashire, but I wouldn't have necessarily attached that to her name to AR.
I mean, we do see her referred to in that CPOMS record that we looked at before, although I accept that you were speaking to Mrs. Allred.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with Jan Lewis.
She was a designated safeguard
I saw her
lead.
this morning, but then I wouldn't have meant anything to me.
Yeah. Regardless, you'd been told, hadn't you, that CPOMS was to be sent to you?
Yes.
Yeah. And you see here that you've received a new secure email from Jan Lewis. You should have opened it. Do you agree?
I wish I'd opened it, but I didn't make a conscious decision to not open it. I just missed it.
Yeah.
There'll probably be other emails from when I was off sick for those 5 weeks that weren't opened either. It wasn't a deliberate move. Of course, I wish I'd opened it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not suggesting that you deliberately disregarded it.
Oh, right.
I just said you should have opened it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, you tell us in your statement you can't remember receiving it. Is that right?
I didn't open it until the September 2024.
Sorry, just answer the question I'm asking you. You
Okay.
can't remember receiving it?
No.
Thank you. And when you returned to work, you failed to spot it?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. There are two ways that you can receive information from CPOMs, correct? One is this mechanism where it's sent to you by egress or some other secure version. The other is that it can actually be transferred through the EPOMS program, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Mrs. Lewis said that the EPOMs would have been transferred electronically as well. Did you hear that evidence?
Yes.
And I think there is also a review by Pressfield which suggests that that happened as well. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
But is this right? You didn't see that, or for whatever reason that wasn't appreciated?
Yes, that's right.
So obviously this was, you were having a difficult time in terms of leave and your personal life at that moment, but you overlooked this in two different ways. Is that right?
That's right.
And you were able to help us with why that was?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I didn't really want to bring, I didn't really want CPOMs. I'm not particularly technically aware, not just with CPOMs, but across the board. Also, I was trying to implement it because I'd been asked to, on top of sort of my usual workload. So I was trying to access training with no slack in my week to do that. So obviously, I was teaching for 3 days. I had other responsibilities, including school attendance. And so I was struggling to become equipped to use CPOMs, and I knew it wasn't going to be implemented quickly. I knew it would take me some time. So that transference of information wasn't yet embedded in my own practice. And with hindsight, if we were to bring in a new large IT system again for something like safeguarding, I think it would have been useful for senior leaders, possibly school governors, to come up with an implementation plan that wasn't just me muddling along.
But you said, I think, that you sought training to work with this. But
Yeah, I tried to.
Yeah.
So I did do some training.
But you were senior enough yourself, weren't you, to suggest an implementation plan if you didn't feel that you were capable of using this?
Yeah, I did express that I wasn't confident with it. And I was a teacher, yes, with extra responsibility. I could certainly make suggestions to the senior leadership team. It didn't necessarily mean they'd listen. But I could, yes.
Yeah, but you didn't, I think. Is that the upshot of your answer?
I expressed, but possibly not formally, that it was a difficult area of work for me to bring that in.
Do you accept that, particularly where there was information about AR wanting to stab someone with a knife, that this was a particularly significant oversight?
Yes.
It meant that at the time, Pressfield had very limited understanding about AR, correct? And the risk that he posed to others.
Sorry.
And the risk that he posed to others.
Yes, I think on the record that you showed me from Acorn CPOMs, I think Mrs. Aldred, on the conversation I can't recall, had already spoken to the then deputy head, so she was aware of the knife incident.
Yes, okay, but information in the CPOMs
Yes.
would have included facts like AR researching websites about mass shootings,
Yes.
referring to images of severed heads, talk about watching YouTube videos of people being harmed.
That's right.
None of that information was
No.
received.
No. And when I was off, that one of the changes the school has brought in now is that if I'm not there or off sick, my emails are now monitored, whereas they weren't before. So my emails weren't monitored by anyone else for that 5-week period.
But this wasn't actually a single oversight, was it? After this happened, there was an investigation that found that CPOM's information had not been requested for 53 children, correct?
That's right.
So, and the reference for that is Miss McLaughlin's statement at PRE 001808, paragraph 27. So this wasn't an isolated incident, it was something that you were failing to do as your common practice, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't embedded in my practice to use CPOMs for transfers, no.
Not embedding is perhaps a little bit of a euphemism for not doing part of your role. Would you accept that?
Yeah.
Could we have up, please, PRE 30357? So we've had these emails up on a couple of occasions. I don't know if you've seen the evidence yet, but we see you as part of an email chain, don't we, that was sent between CAMS, the Acorns, and you and Pressfield.
Yes.
Do you see that? Mm-hmm. And this chain of emails followed that incident that you were told about on the 17th of March, AR going out with a knife, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you could see there's a reference to an Encompass referral as well. Mm-hmm. Was that also information that you received?
Not until the May. So Acorn sent us a very small amount of information about an Encompass report in the May. We didn't receive the document. We just received an email.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 Encompass records, but I actually want to ask you, please, about LCC 001398. So this, I think, is the Encompass report that arose out of the March bus incidents. This isn't the report you're referring to.
No, we didn't get that.
I think, again, Mrs. Lewis said that it was provided to Pressfields. Might you have overlooked this as well?
Hayley, the only thing I'm aware of is that an email came from Acorns to Hayley in the May referencing an Operation Encompass, which she then forwarded to me. That might have been inside the CPOM's information, which I haven't read.
Yeah, thank you. Can we see how this is addressed in your statement, please, at page 4, paragraph 25? You say there, I've been asked if I was aware of the following incidents, and there's a long list there of matters, some of which I've referred to, which would have been on the CPOMs. And do you see that Roman numeral 9 is the incident on the bus? Mm-hmm. If we could look at paragraph 26. Could we have 26? Yes, thank you. I can confirm that at the time of my handover on my return of work from sickness, I was not knowingly aware of any of the above incidents. That's actually not right, is it? You were aware of the bus incident?
Yeah, I couldn't remember. At that time, when we prepared the statement, I hadn't seen the Acorns log, and I still can't remember that phone call on the 21st, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. So, sorry, what you mean by that is you hadn't looked at the underlying records, and although there is actually the record on CPOMs which refers to the telephone conversation,
yes,
you hadn't remembered it?
Yes.
But you had actually seen that record, hadn't you?
From Acorns?
Yeah, by the time you made this statement, you had seen the CPOMs record. Could we have paragraph 27, please?
Oh, there we go. Yes, I had seen it, yeah. Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Can I move on, please, to the question of risk assessments?
Yeah.
You tell us in your statement, paragraph 10, that on the 4th of May 2020, Hayley Dawson, who you've mentioned, the head of sixth form, gave you a paper copy of a risk assessment from Acorn School, which you uploaded to CPONS. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Could we have on screen, please, LCC 30707? Thank you. So this is what's called a pupil risk assessment profile. You'll see on the top right it's watermarked Lancashire County Council, but I think we can see that it's labelled by the Acorn School as obviously associated with the council, and when we see the staff name undertaking, I think we see initials that we'll recognise from the names we've heard from the Acorns, such as JH, Mrs. Hodson, and MA for Mrs. Allred. Do you see that?
Yep.
If we could go over the page, please, and just enlarge the top half. So we see here under aggressive to peers, that's been observed and documented. The severity is given as 2 out of 3, I think. And it says AR alleged that he's been targeted by another learner. And then at the bottom paragraph, AR's referral to the Acorns came about after he'd been informed. Sorry, my fault, Sarah. If we could have the top half referring to the bottom half of the top paragraph, which says AR's referral to the Acorns came about after he informed Childline that he was carrying a knife to school with the intention of harming another learner. Do you see that there?
Yes.
And that's then repeated under violence to peers. Then if we look at the third paragraph in that box, December 19 visited previous school to find a learner who had bullied him. He was unsuccessful and instead assaulted a learner who wasn't connected to the event, and a member of staff charged with assault and completed a community order with the yacht. Refer to AR hitting a new peer at school. If we could now please go to the bottom half, thank you. Do we see the comment there in the next box? When at the previous school, AR was observed to say that's why teachers get murdered in response to being sanctioned. If we could go over the page, please. We see under police involvement in the bottom box on that half, now in the middle, excluded from previous mainstream school for taking a knife in school on more than 10 occasions. The conviction referred to again. And so would you agree that there's a large amount of concerning information in this document?
Yes.
Yeah. Could we go to page 6, please? Thank you, and just enlarge the middle box. Sorry, that's my bad description. How is the risk reduced or minimised? Thank you. The top starred bullet, close liaison with yacht, who are managing the risk and advising school if there is any known risk of reoffending, updates with yacht to review his progress, case now closed and risk is now low. Would you agree that that's not the conclusion of the risk assessment, it's setting out what the yacht considers?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
So, having seen that information from your perspective as a designated safeguard lead, do you agree that this was not a low risk set of information, set of circumstances that you were being given?
I do. But at the same time, we have had students who have successfully been diverted off the path of offending by working with not necessarily Lancashire but Sefton's yacht.
Yep.
And so for them to close the case and say his risk was now low, it felt like successful work had been done.
Yeah, but looking at that history,
Yes.
as a designated
Yeah,
safeguard lead, you
alongside
must have been
the
concerned.
history. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
I think in your statement, you quote the yacht entrance. So you say the risk assessment stated the work had been completed with AR and the risk posed by AR was now identified as low. But I assume that's not actually what you took from reading that document.
Sorry, I don't know what the question is.
What I mean is, having read that information through,
Yeah.
you can't have come to the conclusion that AR presented a low risk when he was at school. When I say that information, I mean the entire document.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, well, there were still risks at school.
Yeah, thank you. So by the stage of receiving this report in May of 2022, even having missed the CPOMs, you were aware of deeply concerning information about AR. Do you agree?
Yes.
Are you able to remember what steps you took to warn other members of staff that that was the case?
So I think Hayley and I, Hayley's said that we had a conversation. Also, that was uploaded onto CPOMs so that the people with the higher level access could see that as well. I can't remember whether we discussed AR at that point during SLT meetings, but there may be there may be minutes that or not, I don't know.
Well, I think Mrs. McLaughlin says that she wasn't made aware,
Right.
and if she had been, steps would have been taken.
Okay.
Should you have notified more senior members of staff?
Yes.
Can we have a look, please, at this Pressfield School risk assessment? It's PRE 201741. And I think for context, we should say, you say in your statement that you weren't involved in writing these risk assessments nor quality assuring them, correct?
Yes.
But if we just look at this document, we see the risks that are the hazards that are considered, and we see the date June 2023. Lack of road awareness, lack of social understanding / abduction, and if we could go over the page, please. More lack of social understanding, and AR can be easily engrossed in a task or his own thoughts and may not respond straight away to instructions. I think you fairly accept in your statement that this risk assessment is inadequate
Yes.
compared to the information that you knew, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And although it wasn't your job to write this risk assessment, would you agree that as designated safeguard lead, it was part of your role to ensure that that information was known by the people that were assessing the risk that AR presented?
Yeah, I agree. And I can only think that at the time, because the head of sixth form had given it me, I knew she had it too, and she line managed the person who wrote this risk assessment. He was working in her team where AR was placed, so I can only look back with hindsight and think my thought process must have been they had it because she gave it to me.
Yeah, but Mrs. Smith, it's
Yes.
still part of
Yes, yeah.
your role too, isn't it? The context to this, obviously, is that AR didn't engage with Pressfield. He only attended on
didn't.
very few occasions. And so he presented limited risk to other Pressfield pupils because he simply wasn't there, correct?
Yes.
But you and Pressfield staff were visiting AR's house, and when AR did come into school, he wasn't being wanted or checked in any way whatsoever, was he? If you had properly appreciated the information in the Acorns risk assessment, he would have been handled very differently, wouldn't he?
Yes, I think he would have been, yes.
You say that you would have considered a prevent referral to see whether that bus incident changed prevent's analysis, correct?
Yeah.
So there was a missed opportunity to put that forward to prevent. You also say, I think you would have ensured that AR was wanded, at your paragraph 31, and you would have stopped home visits, is that right?
It wouldn't be for me to stop them, but I would have discussed it with the head.
Yeah. You might have been a bit more cautious in your own visits to that,
Yes.
correct? If those home visits had been stopped and there were risks from AR coming to school too, would that have prompted a revisit of where AR should have been placed?
Yes, yeah.
Would it have been any part of your role to engage with that?
No, not directly, no.
Fine, so it wouldn't have been part of your role to go to the council and look at alternative settings?
No.
Thank you. AR had an EHCP as well. Had you seen that?
No.
We've had it up today, so I won't put it up again, but would you expect an EHCP to contain risk information? So the sort of information we saw in the risk assessment about the risks that AR presented to others?
Yes, yeah, that would have been useful, yeah.
Obviously, I understand that would have been useful. Is that typical? Is that what you normally see when you look at EHCPs?
They do vary in quality, to be honest, so some of them are very informative and others of them may not be.
And might they contain information about someone being a danger to other pupils or teachers?
They might do, yes.
Thank you. I want to move on, please, to your steps to get AR re-engaged and the contacts you had. So I think you spent a considerable amount of effort taking steps to obtain help from LCC and other agencies to try to get visits to take place for AR, correct?
Yeah.
And you tell us at your paragraph 48, because AR was not engaging, you wanted to understand why, and you're also concerned for his welfare.
That's
correct?
right.
And you also say, and you've given us an example, that AR's parents were not letting you check on his welfare.
Yes.
So that was that you were being refused when you attended for visits.
That's right, yeah.
There's quite a lot of correspondence that sits behind this, but I'm going to try and take things quickly. You received a visit through Sefton Council's first day support response team, correct? So they carried out a visit at your request, correct?
Yes.
And that was even though AR was in fact a Lancashire County Council resident, correct?
Yes.
Again, on this occasion, is this right, AR's mother turned away the educational welfare officer?
That's right, yeah.
You had also asked Lancashire County Council for help, and is this right, that there was just simply no such service in Lancashire at all?
Yes, so they didn't have the same service as Sefton's first day response in place, so there was no one to kind of ask. I did get put in touch with somebody, a children's champion, but he said it wasn't a good use of his time to go out because he lived 90 minutes away. Because where AR lived is right on the border between Lancashire and Sefton, so I don't know where he lived, but obviously not nearby.
Yeah, so in hindsight, that seems like a slightly unattractive position, but in reality, it wasn't his role to be going out and carrying checks, and Lancashire's a large county.
Yes.
And you also say at your paragraph 20 that there was another Lancashire team, the Children's Missing Education team, and they said that they wouldn't visit AR or support with non-attendance because he was not missing, he was at home, correct?
Yes, they said, well, he's not technically missing, he's at home, we know where he is, so there's no role for our service.
Yeah. You weren't reporting him as a missing person.
No, I was saying he's
not
unseen.
Yeah. So the response was completely misconceived. Is that right?
They just didn't feel it was theirs to pick him up.
Yeah. But he was missing from education.
He was, yeah.
You spoke to Robert Corey of Lancashire Constabulary, and we've heard his evidence, but he stated that AR didn't meet the criteria to attend. Is that right?
Yes, there had to be a crime happening or somebody in immediate danger.
Thank you. And we've referred to this email, but I'll just pull it up again. PRE 30223. If we could just enlarge the top half of that. So at the bottom email, we see the fact that you were on hold for quite a long time. You were given a collar number, I think, but not a name. And as we see there, does not meet the threshold for a call out. There's no immediate risk and police will not be going. Mrs. McLaughlin replies, wow, okay, so still no eyes on. And we see your refrain there, the red tape is frightening, not under the remit of Children Missing Educational Team, although not seen by school since 25th of May 2020. So in other words, what's that, about 10 months? Doesn't meet the threshold for a police welfare check, as we can't say we think a crime committed or emergency risk to him. Sefton welfare team tell us to do the above, and Lancashire Sen tell us to ring the police who won't go. Lancashire Social Care might say he doesn't meet their remit. Short of breaking in, I don't know how to see this kid. The only option not exhausted is Steve Baker, who might go out to help because he's attached to us, correct?
Yes.
Although actually, again, AR was in Lancashire Constabulary's jurisdiction.
He was.
And I think what actually happened was that AR did in fact attend not long after this. So you had contacted VC Baker and asked him to attend before he could come back to you. AR appeared at school, correct?
He did.
But later, AR continued not to engage and PC Baker did go and attend, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Could we have page 6 of your statement up, please? Sorry, page 9, my apologies. Paragraph 62. Any of the Lancashire agencies could and should have provided assistance and arranged to check on the welfare of a vulnerable child. It appeared that the agencies were looking for reasons why they couldn't provide assistance. No doubt that remains your view.
Yeah, that's just my view. That's how I felt.
Thank you. And if we go over the page to paragraph 72. In my dealings with other agencies, I found that response from Lancashire Council was very poor. There was no cooperation and no constructive responses. This may have been due to our school coming under the Sefton umbrella, so there was a kind of jurisdictional issue here.
Yeah, but also the head at the time was struggling to get a response from Lancashire, and I was aware of that, and there were quite a few of us trying to get support with AR, not through different people at Lancashire Council.
Yeah.
But what was happening was they either didn't respond, or an email would come saying they'd left the service, or you were chasing all of the time, and nobody was getting back to us, and we were spending an inordinate amount of time trying to get help.
Yeah. So I think Mr. Turner accepted that nothing of substance actually came back to the school, correct?
Yeah.
You knew about the risk that AR presented from the risk assessment you'd read. Who did you think was responsible for managing it?
I think Lancashire Council, I didn't know Acorns was until this morning that Acorns was a provision that routinely wanted everybody that came to their school. So I don't know why he was sent to us when we didn't have that level of security in place. But also, it's now obvious there was a history with social care and police as well. So I think it should have been a collective.
Yeah. The upshot of that, so you referred to Mr. Fay's letters to the council, was that Pressfield sought to remove AR from the role, correct?
Yes.
He wasn't engaging. The efforts to get him engaged were not successful, and no one was actually helping you to get him to engage or even check on his welfare, correct?
That's right.
And it wasn't your decision to take him off the role, but you tell us that you supported it because he was taking the place of someone who actually might engage and make use of the opportunity.
Yes, so the school's oversubscribed. There's quite often lots of students who would like that place, and AR was not getting anything from being on our roll, and he was blocking that place for someone else.
Did you have in mind that if he was taken off the role, it might be an obligation on the council to find somewhere suitable that was alternative for AR?
I think Mr. Fay had that thought process. I didn't at that time, but I think the head did.
Yeah, so that wasn't part of your role necessarily. In your reflections, you say you would have sought training on CPOMs, and I think we've covered that already, and the technical training that was required to utilise the system. Have you done that now?
I haven't been in work for over 12 months.
Understood. Thank you. Those are my questions. I'll just turn my head, see if anyone... No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your evidence. You're free to go.
So I think we're too late to get Mrs. McLaughlin, who's very kindly agreed to come back on Monday, for which we're grateful.
Yes, I'm sorry to her.
And there's no point in making her part heard for the benefit of a few
No,
minutes.
not for a quarter of an hour. Although it somewhat tempts fate, is it worth saying 10 o'clock on Monday? Yes. All right. I will tempt fate. We'll sit at 10 on Monday.